live.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Just give us a couple more minutes. We're just waiting for some of the people who are still joining in. We'll get started momentarily. I think we have quorum. There's a lot to cover today, so let's get started. So welcome everyone to the first installment of our four-part webinar series, Chaos to Clarity, Building a Unified Data Strategy on Azure. We are thrilled to have you here today. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for making the time to join us for this session. This webinar is designed to help you address one of the biggest challenges that organizations face, creating a unified data strategy to deliver insights that drive better decision-making. Now, before we dive in, let's cover a few housekeeping items to ensure that you get the most out of today's session. So first, please note that your webinar is being recorded, and we'll share a copy of the recording with all the registrants after the session. For a seamless experience, we have muted attendee microphones, but we encourage everyone to have engagement. Please use the chat or the Q&A panel to ask your questions as we go along the way. We'll love to hear from you. Beyond this session, if you have any follow-up questions or need further information, don't hesitate to contact us. You should see an email to reach on how to reach us. Now, why don't we introduce today's speakers? So I'll start with myself. I'm Paul Chabla. I'm based out of Toronto. I feel privileged for the opportunity to put this series together. A unified data strategy is an amalgamation of my skills and experiences. I led customer success at MuleSoft, which gave me a deep understanding of integration. Previously, I worked in the Snowflake ecosystem where I learned about data warehousing and analytics. And in my current role, I'm really learning how to leverage the power of AI as I'm in the Microsoft ecosystem. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Joining today with me is our head of delivery, Weboff, who has over 10 years of experience delivering digital transformation for customers. He was instrumental in the creation of our data and AI practice. He has worked with numerous organizations to help create cloud journey roadmaps that complement their business and technical goals. Also with me today is Lucas, a resident expert on integrations. He has more than 20 years of experience in solution architecture. Don't let his young looks fool you. He has a lot of experience. He has been utilizing Azure integration since its inception. He has successfully replaced platforms like MuleSoft with Azure integration services in many organizations, and he has delivered a lot of significant cost savings and operational improvements. So together, we'll walk you through the insights we have gathered through, helping numerous organizations transform their data strategies. But first, a little bit about Optimus. So Optimus Information is an Azure-only partner with over 14 years of experience in app modernization. We have worked with more than 150 clients across North America. We have long-standing relationships with notable clients and often act as an extension of their internal teams. Our expertise lies in Azure, backed by ISO certification and supported by global delivery centers that enable scalability and cost efficiency. With a focus on deep technical expertise and customer satisfaction, we bring trusted partnerships to every project. With that foundation, let's explore our core competencies that enable us to solve complex business challenges. So at Optimus, we focus on three areas that drive customer success. First, we help customers with their cloud adoption strategies, from migration planning to security to cost optimization and ongoing support. Our main core competency is actually app development. We've been doing it for 14 years. And this includes cloud-native application modernization, testing as a service, Azure integration services, so anything to do with app development and app modernization. And then a practice that we established this year is the data and AI practice that covers data strategy, transformation, data visualization, and AI implementation. Now, this comprehensive but very focused approach ensures that we can meet your Azure needs across the software development lifecycle and beyond. So let's get started with reviewing the specific challenges that organizations face today in creating value from their data. After all, this is why you're here. So, excuse me. Now, despite understanding the need to invest in advanced digital transformation and data analytics capabilities, organizations today face many obstacles when trying to scale their data and analytics. It's extremely difficult to operate and govern hundreds, if not thousands, of databases. And data and systems generally are disparate, they're siloed, and they lack interoperability. Disparate data systems or lacking data estate strategy can frequently lead to poor quality data that's hard to extract from. Platforms are technical in nature and require advanced analytic skills. It can be next to impossible to gain BI or AI adoption across the organization, in turn making it really hard to streamline data sharing and accelerated insight discovery across teams and lines of businesses. Costly integrations, tax, and ongoing maintenance can be cumbersome. Large amounts of data come with greater security and governance risks, especially as it gets shared more widely across the organization. And there's a need to deliver on the promise of analytics, but the resources are very limited. Integrating fragmented data and systems can be difficult and expensive, with technical platforms requiring advanced analytical skills. Because of that, the adoption of business intelligence across many organizations can be challenging to achieve and error prone, especially due to the high security list and limited resources. Which brings us now to the start of the series. So today's session will address key challenges organizations face when trying to unify their data and how Azure provides a comprehensive solution. We will cover how did organization get to this point in the first place, why a unified data strategy is essential to today's landscape, the critical role that Azure Integration Services plays in streamlining those data flows, and finally, we outline the next steps you can take to get started. With that, I'd like to hand it over to our next speaker, Webaf. Webaf, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. So, as Paul mentioned, what I'll be going over with you guys is kind of, explore a little bit more of the challenges that Paul was just talking about. Look at it in more detail as to, why and how did, organizations get here? How do we address those? What's the next stages? How do we address that to get to the ideal state? And then what is that journey to get to that ideal state, right? And that's also going to map with kind of this webinar series that we are running here today. So, excuse me. Now, if you take a look at this diagram on the screen here, now this diagram represents a lot of the challenges that Paul was talking about earlier, and what we are going to call our starting line, right? We have the siloed data, we have the data duplication, we have limited interoperability. So how do organizations end up here, right? And for that, typically we see there are two main scenarios that bring us here, right? Number one, you may have organizations that have, not had the opportunity yet to define their data policies or their data governance. What does that look like? And as a result, all their data initiatives, they come about like organically, right? Like a team may suddenly realize they have some need and they build for it, right? For example, we can take like a sales team, right? They may realize, hey, I need data about how many leads am I closing? What does my average order value look like? Right? So they'll go to their CRM, they'll get some data from there, then they'll go to their financial system, get some data from there, they'll put it all together, and then they'll make the reports they need. Now, at the same time, maybe marketing is going that, hey, we need some data on, how well our campaigns are doing. So they go to the same CRM system, they pull out the same data that, sales did, but they use it for their own purposes, and there's no like cohesion between the two, right? So what you see is you end up in this situation where you have, like completely disparate workflows, you have data duplication, and really it's just not a cohesive situation at all, right? So that's the first situation that we see. The second scenario is it's slightly better than the first one, but unfortunately ends us in the same place. And those are companies that have actually taken the time and effort to define the data policies and governance, right? But then they leave the implementation of those again to the teams individually at the ground level, right? So there's still no central control over your data strategy. And as a result, you end up in the same situation. Now, you're better off slightly because obviously your teams are now following maybe similar processes and they're using the same tool sets. So you're better set up to end up in a good place, but you're still facing the same issues, right? Of siloed data, data duplication. And unless, again, unless you have a very good audit mechanism on this, the standards of implementation of all these policies as well, you're leaving it up to the team, so it may vary a lot. So that's typically how we see organizations end up in this place. So now that we've seen that, like how what can we do about it, right? Like what where do we go from here, right? And there are four key aspects that at Optimus that we recommend, and these are the four key things you're going to hear over and over in this whole webinar series as well, right? And the first thing for that is to unify your data sources, right? To create a single source of truth, right? We need to make sure all the data from all the data sources in the company is flowing into one central place, right? A central data lake from which all your data initiatives flow out of, right? And tools like AIS, which Lucas will be covering later on, are really a very, very easy way of enabling this, right? So that's step one. The second step, now that you have all this data in one place and you have all your it's become your source of truth, is how do you manage this data and give access to everyone that needs the data, right? So now that doesn't mean you make it open and just kind of it's a free for all. You still want to control the access to data, right, with things like RBAC and other security issues, security constructs. But the people who do need access, we want to make sure that they have access to that in the easiest and most preferably, a low code or no code way of accessing this data, right? We really want to reduce the barrier to access because that's what promotes usage of this system that we're building, right? So that's the first two steps, right? You build a central location, you give everyone access that needs access to that location. Now, the third step is the reverse direction, right? Okay, now people know where to go get the data, they can get to it easily, but we also want to make getting the data out just as easy, right? And here, when we talk about data, we're talking about the insights and the analytics that this data can present, right? So we don't want people spending a lot of time trying to figure out, hey, how do I get that data I wanted? Writing complex queries. And the way we can do that is by enabling tools like Copilot or Azure OpenAI, right? So let them do the heavy lifting of creating that data for you. We can link it to other tools like Power BI. So we can create very easy to use reports for even people who are not technical. And then that, which makes, it frees up more time for the person to spend on the actionable insights rather than on getting the insights itself, right? So that's the first three steps, right? And the fourth thing, what we see actually, it happens on its own if you do these first three things, right? And what that is it actually changes the overall culture of your organization, right? What happens is if you have all the data you want exactly at the time you need it, you start becoming a data first organization, right? Any decisions that you need to make, any new projects you want to take on, right? Again, in our example earlier, sales needs to know, hey, where should I focus on? Marketing needs to know, hey, where do I spend more time? All of that flows from data, right? And what that also ensures is that you don't end up back in the place where we started, right? Everyone starts thinking in a data first way, and that really sets you up for success in the future, right? And then when you put all of that together, we end up here at what we call the finish line, right? And if you can see in this diagram here, at the bottom, you have all your data providers and your data generators. They all flow into that one unified layer, right? And from this layer flows out all the other initiatives that you want to work on, right? And that may not even be specifically data stuff, right? It may even just be, hey, I need to integrate into other systems, right? I need to run more data modeling, or, I need to make business decisions, right? All of that is really fed in by that central layer, which you can create by this unification process. So that's kind of the end state that we want to get everyone here to. And the journey to that looks something like this, right? Again, these are the four key things that I spoke about earlier. Just kind of, and we're going to hit on these in each of our topics and sessions in this series. The first one is all about unifying your data estate. That's the session we're having today. This is going to be all about how we can use AIS to bring everything into one place. So, and then once you have everything in that place, how do you manage that? How do you transform that data? That's the next session coming up. That's going to be on Microsoft Fabric. How do we leverage all the capabilities that provides? The third thing after that, how do you enable strong analytics and insights? That's going to be our third session. That's going to be all about Power BI, Copilot, Azure OpenAI. And then the fourth thing, how do we do all of this in a very secure and observable manner so you can monitor how everyone's using the data and what's happening with it. And that'll be our fourth session, which will be all around tools like Purview and how you can help set up those governance policies and structures in your organization. So with that, I will hand it off to Lucas, who's going to be covering that first step of the journey, which is about unifying your data estate using Azure Integration Services. Lucas?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I would like to start my talk asking, what is Azure Integration Services, right? This is the Microsoft answer to the growing needs for connecting all of our diverse systems, data, applications, wherever they are, in the cloud, on premises, or even spread across multiple environments. AIS, it's a core. It's about connecting everything. It provides a set of powerful tools that make it easy to build seamless workflows, helping our business move data and communicate efficiently across different systems. Think on AIS as a set of building blocks that allow you to bring different parts of your organization together, right? So with that said, let's start exploring more about these tools that AIS brings to us. For example, log caps. We can automate and orchestrate process, eliminating the manual and repetitive tasks that take up so much time from the company and from people. AIS offers an API management. This helps ensure your APIs are secure and easily accessible. This will empower us to leverage existing business functionality without reinventing the wheel, right? There is also Event Grid and Service Bus, which will let us decouple services and create event-driven and real-time interactions. This means our systems can be agile, responding instantly to the changes and always staying in sync. We also have tools like Azure Functions that we can build up just-in-time processing capabilities, ensure we are agile and only using resources when needed, instead of paying a lot of money to servers that will not be used for all the time. And also we do have here a data factory. This is a key component for data movement and transformation. Data Factory helps us bring data from different sources together and transform it as needed and keep our system in sync. This is essential when we need to work with a large data sets, automate data integration, and make sure that our data is always flowing between systems effectively. All of these tools come together to provide security, flexibility, and scalability, giving to the business a comprehensive way to integrate and automate in a reliable and cost-effective manner. Ultimately, Azure Integration Services is designed to bridge the gaps between our systems, automate manual process, and empower the teams to focus on what truly matters. Here, we will deliver value. This is about enabling growth, scalability, and real-time action, right? So this is about Azure Integration Service. But there's more, much more about it. AIS also is supported by a range of essential features that helps ensure seamless integration and reliable operation across different environments. So here we do have, for example, integration accounts, a place to provide a centralized way to manage artifacts, schemas, maps, and agreements, making business-to-business integration smoother and more efficient. This is a central repository that ensures that your business-to-business process are always aligned and easy to manage. Of course, we need storage, and for that we do have a blob storage that is used for managing large files and data objects that are parts of our workflows. So where is storing logs, data files, or intermediary outputs, blob storage offers a scalable and cost-effective storage that will integrate well with other Azure and other AIS components. Relays plays a critical role enabling security communication between cloud-based services and on-premises services. They let us connect without compromising the network security, right? Key Vault is our secure backbone. Here we will store sensitive information like connection strings, certificates, and other sensitive data. It will ensure that sensitive data remains protected while simplifying how we manage and access this information. And lastly, but not less important, we have on-premises data gateway, which also allows the cloud services like Logic Apps to securely connect to their on-premise data. This gateway is crucial for hybrid integrations, whether business needs to access data remaining on premises while still benefiting from the power of cloud automation, right? So together, these supporting features strengthens the core of Azure integration services, and this enhance security, improve manageability, and ensure that our systems, even on premise or on the cloud, stay reliable connected. I know this is too much. Let me give you some different point of view, right? So with AIS, we will basically have three big silos of features, right? So we will be able to build up new integrations, connecting on premises and cloud, or even other clouds in one single place. We will be able to bring our business workflows together and manage how they work in a consistent and scalable way. And lastly, we can expose our APIs for developers and create opportunity for new business models. Well, we are connecting things, correct? So AIS is designed to support a very huge variance of scenarios and explore many, many kinds of companies, right? We can connect almost everything with AIS. So this is a very basic diagram showing the components, how they interact with each other, and how do we can explore all the integrations, right? And today, the big word that everybody's talking all the time is AI. Everybody wants to have AI, right? Everybody wants to connect their systems, connect their applications, take the advantage, for example, of Copilot and etc. But let's recap something that is very critical. There's no AI without APIs, right? People's talking about AI, but it sounds like we're forgetting about the APIs. And even when we're talking about APIs, we need data, right? Data is what moves the decisions today. It's what we need to consider to take our decisions. And for that, connecting all these dots comes something that is very important, an event-driven architecture, right? Let me give you an example. The business needs every day to take the decision as fast as the changes happens, right? As soon as they happen. And we need to react in real time to these changes. How do we do that? In the event-driven architecture, we will have something like, imagine someone coming into your office and screaming to everybody in the company, listen, hey, we sold a new membership, right? We have a large audience in the office, people from different areas, right? So, for example, the marketing team listening to that message will say, okay, we need to send an email to that customer, confirm he's bought a new membership. Welcome, you are a new member, correct? Probably the commercial team will listen to this message and say, okay, we need to plan the next upsell to offer to this customer. And probably the logistics team will say, all right, we need to ship the t-shirt for our new customer. So observe, we took 3 actions from one message, from one event that has already happened, 3 different decisions and 3 individual decisions, right? This is a business layer. Let's understand how this makes the systems work. So let's imagine you have a system A working, doing wherever they have with their own database. It could be eventually an external system, right? And the system will publish a message, an event, to an event broker. And this event broker will, for example, dispatch a copy of the event to one system, a copy of the event to another system, and each system will react to this event in parallel and independently. And of course, we should have a data store to receive a copy of this event and store it for later analysis, right? So an event-driven architecture brings to the business the real-time capability, not just to take actions, but to sync the data in real time. Let me give you an example how AIS make this happen, right? So let's imagine a scenario where do we need to make a data ingestion. You have here a third-party application, or maybe you have IoT devices publishing data to your API, right? I can imagine something like you have a restaurant and you have an IoT device on the restaurant, and every time the fridge is opened, right, we receive a message say, hey, fridge opened, and this is the temperature, right? We can use a web application, an Azure function, or even a Logic app to receive that message, process, and publish an event that represents the result of the decision. So the business layer makes the decision and publish the decision here as an event. This will also trigger other workflows or other functions to make for the worker, right? And we can have in parallel a different silo with Microsoft Fabric, right? We can have here all the best practices to receive raw data, clear, filter, and transform data, and do the business level aggregation, and of course, expose this data again, right? But see, Microsoft components and Azure Integration Service, they connect very easily, and they are plug and play in most scenarios. So in a situation where we can have an event-driven architecture, we can simply use a real-time intelligence to start receiving the same events. And right now, we will have all the data flowing in real time into our one lake. This will allow the business to take the decision in real time. This will bring to the business a real-time synced data. So all the data will be synchronized as soon as it happens, right? And of course, if we are exposing the data back again using the Azure components, we will be able to expose data recalculated near real time, right? So if you want to explore and understand better how Microsoft Fabric works, How do you make your business see, process, and expose data in real time? Next webinar, we will explore the Microsoft Fabric into details. And you are invited to join us the next session and understand how this can bring a lot of benefits to your company, right? Let me give you another simple use case using Azure Integration Service and Azure Fabric, right? Recapping, we're talking about event-driven architecture and Azure Integration Service. So let's imagine that you have a mobile application here, a website, or a SaaS application, right? Doesn't matter what is it. The application will publish or invoke your API and hit your application today, right? This is your scenario right now. Probably your company is exposing APIs and working something similar. And of course, the application is working with a SQL database. Let's add an event-driven capability here. So we can have a topic that will represent an event that happened into your company. Like, for example, a user created. So someone entered your website, registered, called the API, the application has write your data down to the database and publish the event saying, hey, the user is created. This is a well-made decision. Here is the user created. After that, we can, for example, trigger an Azure function to send a welcome email to our customer using SendGrid, right? Now, the Azure functions and Azure Integration Service brings to us a lot of flexibility. And now let's imagine that you have to add a new feature. The business keeps evolving. You need to add features to the system. So every time a new user is created, we want to create a user in a SaaS application, right? So with that said, we can create another function with a single responsibility that will be responsible for sending this data over to another platform. And let's imagine another scenario. I want to receive this data. For example, the user created ID into our SaaS platform, and I want to invoke and publish data back here, right? So in that case, we can create a new event that will be called SaaS user created, means that this user here has been created. And when this SaaS user is created, we can have an update user ID in Salesforce back again, right? So this is the way we can create an event-driven architecture using the Azure Integration Service resources. And of course, we can have other scenarios in parallel, receiving data from external partners as well, right? But you're thinking, all right, I understood what you're saying about event-driven. Sounds interesting. I got your point, but where is, right, the data ingestion? As I said before, OneLake has capabilities with Microsoft Fabric to receive data in real time. So we can use this same events to fill data, to publish data back again to OneLake, right? And we will make OneLake recalculate our data, our reports in real time as soon as the events happen, right? Some people may be thinking, all right, I do have a SQL database here that probably will be in an inconsistent state, right? All right, but we can also use OneLake to load and extract data from that SQL database, keeping everything in sync into OneLake, right? So that's the way we can create, based on AIS and an event-driven architecture, a stream analytics canonical architecture. This is the way the business will be able to produce data, ingest data, use machine learning to make the analysis on that data, and of course, present, or take actions based on this data. So this is the power of Azure Integration Service. But you may thinking, all right, this is too technical, right? You got the details. I do understand what's happening. Sounds powerful. Let me give you some other arguments to understand why should we adopt and use Azure Integration Service, right? Let's take a moment to reflect on why it's a preferred choice for many organizations today. Integration in the modern era is about far more than connecting systems. It's about building an agile, resilient, and cost-effective infrastructure that scales effortlessly, right? So Azure Integration Services offers a rich ecosystem of tools that not only simplify all these complex integration scenarios, but also brings to you and provide the scalability, security, and seamless connectivity required for today's hybrid environment, right? There's a lot more to talk, but I will focus on the 6 benefits of using AIS, right? So you have a comprehensive integration capabilities, right? AIS offers a robust suite of tools, as explained before, Logic Apps, Service Bus, Event Grids, and others. And this combination allows a seamless integration across on-premise and cloud environments, connecting disparate systems with ease and efficiency. AIS offers a highly scalable and is capable of handling a fluctuation workload without any manual intervention. So this will also reduce your cost, right? Because it offers a flexibility in designing workflows and integrations that adapt to your evolving business needs. Okay. It's a cost effective because it operates on a pay-as-you-go model, reducing the initial investment cost. You only pay for what you use, which is especially appealing for organizations looking to manage their budget while gaining access to powerful integrations features, right? This is awesome, right? You have security and compliance. Azure provides enterprise-graded security and adheres to industry standard compliance requirements, making AIS a secure option for integration solutions. Here we will have virtual network connectivity, encryption, identity manage, and many other features. So honestly, it's the best secure solution in the market right now, in my perspective. And AIS also integrate seamlessly with other Azure services. This will bring to you a native integration with Azure ecosystem, AKS, Fabric, Azure Fabric, Event Grid, and almost everything on Azure will be easily connected. And of course, you will have a vendor consolidation. So you will be able to manage one bill and make all the decisions based on the costs your business are having based on Azure. It's much more easy to manage everything in one single place, right? Now, let me give you a comparison, a slightly comparison with the other players in the market, right? So Azure offers a very high scalability. It's very, very high. This is the best cost efficiency platform in the market right now. You can use the Azure portal, or you can also program using pre-tool like Visual Studio Code, right? Azure AIS, the Azure Integration Service will also allows your company to have an event-driven architecture in an enterprise messaging layer and API management with the best practices and the compliances standard from the market, right? Right. I truly appreciate your time. I would like to explore much more all the tools we have, talk more about them. Feel free to connect to us. It will be a pleasure to respond all your questions. And now I would like to hand back to Paul who will explain the roadmap of our next steps. Thank you all.
Well, thank you, Lucas. That was very, very informative. Really appreciate the time you spent. To the attendees that have joined us today, I hope you found some value in that. And hopefully it planted some ideas about how you can use Azure to help meet your integration needs. Now, whether you're building new integrations or you're thinking about consolidating your other platforms into one, Azure does provide those services that can kind of meet your integration needs. So I don't know if you have any questions. We intentionally left some time at the end for any questions. I don't see any questions in the chat or the Q&A panel. If you have any questions, please do put it in the chat or the Q&A panel, or if you prefer to reach out indirectly or through the email, you can do that so as well. I'll give you a minute to kind of see if you have any questions that you want to ask. Well, I would assume that we covered everything so well that there are no questions out there. But if something does come up, feel free to reach out to us. And again, this is again to give you something to consider. We have done many of these integration projects, and the client feedback has been the systems that we've built are performant. They're a lot more cost effective. And the best thing they've said is they're easy to maintain because their existing team that already knows Azure can now maintain their integrations, right? So that consolidation of the tech stack is what they have really benefited from. So I'd hope that you would consider that as you kind of figure out, as you assess the different integration ways to integrate your systems. Um, so Lucas, we did actually have a question come up. Can you give us an example of how easy and how long it is to integrate with on-prem and Azure cloud services?
All right. So there's a lot of possibilities to make this integration, but basically we need to set up a firewall rule into your on-premise environment and make a connection using App Gateway or even a third-party application firewall on Azure that will enable a connection between the two environments. Depending on the workload you may have or how fast you need your connection be, we can use also an express route to connect both environments with a dedicated link, which will bring also to you the power of fiber connection, right? So there is some scenarios we can in, but definitely it's very easy, and we can do that in some few hours probably, depending on the scenario. But
yeah,
okay.
Sharon, thank you for asking that question. Typically, I would have said it depends, right, on the use case and how complex the integration is and what's needed. Particularly, I'll say one thing, we've worked with a lot of clients, and me coming from MuleSoft, one is any change or any setup that you require MuleSoft does require specialized skills. And most of the clients that have used an integration platform have to rely on a third-party vendor to either implement it or to make enhancements. And mostly even the maintenance works from a third party. So for you to make a change once it's set up, you have to now provide the requirements, somebody has to build it, they come back to you, you test it. So it takes a lot of time to make a simple change in your integration. With the event-driven architecture and with the Azure toolset, that change could become a lot more efficient. We have seen significant cost savings and a significant reduction in the effort required to make enhancements and changes to your integration system. So I know your question was how long does it take to integrate the first set, but it's not just about how do we set it up. I think that is significantly easier to do, but also from an ongoing enhancements and maintenance perspective, it is significantly less effort. Thanks for the question. All right, so on that note, so this is again the roadmap for the unified data on Azure. WebAuth had covered this before. Today we covered the first part. So how do you really ingest the data? You have a lot of siloed, systems out there, a lot of disparate systems. How do you bring it all together? Because the starting point of a unified data, architecture is to unify that data. So once you put in the data lake, the next set of thing you'll do is how do you actually transform the data? Maybe use a medallion architecture. Put it into the different layers, bronze, silver, and gold. And how do you expose that data using Power BI, or even enhance that data using Copilot or something like that. So that will all be in our next sessions. So if you haven't already, please do register for the next session. We will have a guest speaker, Neha Sharma. She is a resident expert on Fabric, and she'll be walking us through how Fabric provides a really comprehensive tool set to transform your data so that it's consumable by the analytic tools. And the session is on December 17th, again at 2 p.m. EST. If you haven't registered already, please do register, because even if you can't attend, then at least you'll get the recording of the session. So with that, I thank you for your time. I
And
hope you
sorry,
found it valuable.
Paul, just one more reminder that we are offering complimentary discovery sessions to people, to eligible customers. If you want to learn more about AIS, or if your organization's ready to take this journey, so feel
Yeah.
free to reach out to us on that as well.
Yeah, good point. I think we covered a lot, but if you want a one-on-one session in terms of, okay, so how does this work for us? Like, what would our roadmap look like? We're more than happy to spend that time with you, maybe do a workshop. So please do reach out to us. All right. On that note, I'll give you maybe 12 minutes back. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on December 17th. Talk to you later.